If you have a commercial loan, those loan covenants give them the right to know everything going on in your business and in all of your business. They get to be in your business. They can look at your 941 payroll taxes. They can look at your financial statements. They can look at your income tax returns. They can look at your rent rolls, not just on the property they've got a loan on, but everything else you've got.
Good day, everyone. This is Dr. David Phelps of the Freedom Founders Mastermind Community and the Dentist Freedom Blueprint podcast. Today, we're going to have a great conversation with one of my longtime friends in real estate, Mr. Jeffrey Watson. Jeff, great to have you on.
It's good to be with you, man. It's always fun.
Well, Jeff and I have known each other for a long time, and I want to give a little bit of color to his background because he is, I would say, very much an advocate for those of us, and there's many of us across the nation, well, across the world, but across the nation, who really enjoy being involved in some aspect of real estate investment. I'd call us, we're the on the ground entrepreneurs, whether we're active or we're semi-active or some of us like to be passive, but whatever that is, there needs to be a real advocate, and Jeff has done that. And I'll give you some of what he's done over the last decade plus in regards to just that aspect. But Jeff is an Ohio attorney who's had an active trial and hearing practice for over 30 years. As a trial lawyer, he has a unique perspective on real estate investing, wealth building, and asset protection. As a real estate investor himself since 1994, investing in both residential and commercial properties, Jeff has been through multiple market cycles. That's a key that we're going to talk about today. That's really, really important. He currently represents established real estate investors in commercial and residential matters. You've done work for me and some of my gang. Yeah. When the transactions involve self-directed retirement accounts. So that's a specialty niche. Probably have you back on to talk about that separately, but for those people who don't realize it, and a lot of people don't, Jeff, and you know that, they don't realize that they can actually have control over what they invest in through their individual self-directed traditional Roth health savings account, Coverdale. So many people blows me away. They don't know that. They think they're locked into the market, the financial markets. And I'll just bring that out, but we'll come back and touch on that because that's a whole subject into itself. But you are that's a subspecialty of yours that you do a lot of work on and help people keep people straight. And there's guidelines and rules to follow. You got to do it right, but if you do it right, it's an immense opportunity. Jeff is also a recognized thought leader and innovator in the field of real estate and note investing, wealth building, subject to transactions, another area that we probably have to do a whole separate discussion on. These are all deep dives. And also the self-directed retirement account transactions. Tens of thousands of investors have used documents created by Jeff to invest in notes or properties, and that's so important in this day and age. You've got to have the right documents. Don't do it yourself. Very dangerous out there in those waters. Jeff's also a nationally recognized authority regarding regulatory concerns with creative financing, seller financing, and wholesaling. These are topics that some of you listening today may not be aware of, but this is, again, boots on the ground, real estate investing, and there's rule changes happening across the board, as there is in everything in government today. The government wants to take over everything, all aspects of our life, and Jeff is a fighter for keeping some levels of freedom of operation. In his home state of Ohio, he's worked with the Ohio Division of Real Estate and nationally with Arello regarding the legality of wholesaling. In 2018, Jeff became a member of the board of directors of Quest Trust Company. That's a group that a custodian that most of my members know very well, and Jeff's on the board. They're a nationally recognized leader in self-directed IRA services. Jeff is the general counsel to the National Real Estate Investors Association. Jeff's also general counsel to and co-founders of RealFlow LLC, which made the Inc. 500 list in 2011. Another of his clients made the Inc. 500 list in 2018. He currently advises 5 different national training or educational organizations with a combined membership of over 200,000 investors. Jeff authors an email newsletter twice a week, Watson Invested, maintains a blog at watsoninvested.com on investing, business, and entrepreneurship, which are read by over 10,000 successful investors. The lobbying efforts that you have been such an adamant part of since like 2010 with kind of like Dodd-Frank and what that changed there. You're there on a regular basis on Capitol Hill, dealing with regulation on policy on distressed property purchases and resales, 2014, 2015. Your efforts helped bring about changes in the U.S. tax code and help reinstate the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act. You also met with FHFA regarding disposition of defaulted notes and mortgages in bulk format. In 2016, Jeff met with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau regarding regulating land installment contracts, another really big effort, so important. He's currently working to secure passage of the Affordable Home Access Act during the past 3 months sessions in Congress. 2021, this was a big one that came up with Build Back Better, which thankfully didn't go through, but boy, it was onerous, so many teeth in that one. You led the fight to protect self-directed IRA accounts from very, very harsh restrictions they were getting ready to lay on there. I mean, very, very bad, very bad.
It would have devastated the industry.
It really would. It would, you know, it would have been a game over. And then in your own state of Ohio, the Civil Rights Act to protect landlords from frivolous claims as to comfort animals. You're also the co-creator of the option contract method that revolutionized the short self-living process back in 2008. Gosh, who would have thought? And here we are in 2023. Kind of some similarities, not all the same. Coming back there. Well, Jeff, that's all the time we have today. We'll be back next week for another session. Just get your intro. But I laugh, but Jeff, I know personally, you know, what an advocate you are, and I want to be serious about that, because I know you spend more time in the air or in locales outside of Ohio than you do inside, because you are on the road, in the air, going to different places, whether you're training, teaching, helping clients, Capitol Hill. You're a guy that's out there making it happen, and I'm blessed to call you a friend. I say proud as well, but just blessed because when there's something I need to know within any of these realms, it's like you're the go-to guy. It's like I call Jeff and text Jeff and say, Jeff, hey, what give me some insights here, and boom, the answer's there in a heartbeat. And you can't buy that kind of expertise and that kind of access, because there's few people that do what you do. I mean, you're very unique, a unicorn. So what I want to talk about today was talking about the cycles. You and I and other people that run in our generation have been through multiple cycles, and a lot of people haven't. A lot of people kind of grew up in this last 12, 14 years after the great financial crisis, where we've had ZIRP, zero interest rate loan policy, where mortgage interest rates, all interest rates have been artificially kept very, very low, super low, like federal funds rate next to zero, and every other rate's been low. So cheap cost of capital, which over a period of time of doing that, it brings on a lot of speculation. And it seems like people that jump on the bandwagon in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, everything turns to gold and everybody thinks it's all about them. And not to take away from people's efforts, because you do have to put effort in anything you do, but there's a lot of people don't understand there's another side of this cycle. And I think you and I would both agree, we've been talking about it for quite some time, way before what's happened in the last couple of weeks, that this is coming. It's coming. We didn't know exactly when something triggers it, but I think we're seeing the underlying of the beast of what all this policy, dealing with the pandemic and the trillions of dollars of helicopter money, and now inflation and fighting inflation and trying to get a soft landing and all the BS that's out there. Jeff, let's just talk real time to people who, like you and I and our friends who love real estate. We know the benefits it does bring to us, but we still have to be prudent about how we go about it. In your estimation, what's changing in terms of the way investors in general, single family, commercial, we can dive into either one of those, but what's changing in the overall 30,000 foot elevation? What do we need to be aware of right now that people in the past have not had to look at?
Oh, David, first of all, that's a fantastic question. I'm going to answer it with something that is new for me, but I'm going to go back and say this. You, Eddie Speed, myself, and a handful of other people, we saw this change coming back in 2019. And we tried pre-pandemic to get this message out. And hundreds of buy quickly and resell quickly guys heard it, but it didn't resonate with them. They just didn't get it. And now they are. And for some of them, it's too late. But I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing today and what I'm thinking about today that I've never thought about before, because of what we're seeing in the market right now. I'm talking right now, David, end part of March of 23. Okay. So I'm dating this. Okay. I'm now looking at the dominoes behind the counterparty that I'm doing a transaction with.
Yes. Well, so explain that a little bit. You and I know what that, explain to people that don't understand what you mean by counterparty risk.
You and I understand counterparty risk all day long, because you and I are either going to buy a house from each other, sell a house to each other, lend money to each other, whatever. Okay, so we're counterparties to each other. We're on opposite sides of a transaction. But we both know that we want to look behind the other guy or the other gal or the other company and go, what are they doing with that money? What's going on behind it? Because yeah, I'll lend money to a guy who's buying a house at a good price. He's going to run it as a rental. But wait a second, I want to now know more about your tenant screening process. I want to know more about where's that property located. I want to know more about what the rent, what the market is, what the political attitude is in that area. For example, David, I'll give you an example. I would be much more hesitant to lend money to a landlord in Cleveland, Ohio, because of the politics of Cleveland, than I would be to lend money to somebody in, say, Dallas, Texas, outside of Dallas, Texas, because of the politics there. Okay. And so it has nothing to do with the quality of the landlord. It has nothing to do with their ability to repay. It has nothing to do with the house. It has to do with where is the house located? Because now I'm looking at it going, ooh, that landlord can do everything right, but factors beyond his or her control can influence their ability to pay.
Well, we saw that very directly during the pandemic.
We did.
Different jurisdictions.
I'm going to take it one step further.
All right.
Now I'm looking at it for, okay, who's the commercial, this apartment people, pay close attention here. Okay. I'm going to say, okay, you're coming into a syndication, pay close attention to who is the commercial bank or banks involved. Because David, I think we need to have a conversation about loan covenants. Okay.
We are, before we finish, we are going to do this.
Good. Because pay close attention to that. Who are they? What's going on? What's their history? What's their track record? Because we need to be careful, because some of the best deals I've ever been involved in was when a client of mine had the opportunity to step in and buy assets when a bank was being hammered by federal regulators having to unload stuff. And folks, I'm talking in the last 12 years, we've done this. We've cleaned up very nicely, you know?
Well,
and
yeah, and banks are under heavier pressure today just because of what's happened the last couple of weeks, right?
Ever before.
Yeah.
Ever before.
Everybody's out, even notwithstanding the feds, you know, who, depending on the size of the bank, you know, have to keep an audit presence there. But customers are asking right questions, you know, money is coming out of the local community banks and regionals and going to the big banks just because people have a fear factor. So, you know, that's leaving potentially some of these other banks more vulnerable than they were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm gonna let me talk about that. If you have more than $250,000 in a bank, okay, I can understand you doing something prudent. But if you're got $250,000 or less in your local community banks, leave it there.
Yeah.
Don't hurt those local community banks, because we need them.
Yes.
Okay. I really enjoy going to a church and looking across to the other side of the auditorium and seeing the president or vice president of one of the local community banks, because I know I can have a human being conversation with them. You think I can do that with JP Morgan Chase? You think I can do that with Wells Fargo, Bank of America? No way.
Not a chance.
No,
you're 100% right. We there's been too much consolidation already. The government wants consolidation.
Way too much. But that's the idea behind Dodd-Frank. That's really the sinister idea behind Dodd-Frank. And I'm going to go ahead and make one other really outrageous statement. And I said this in a mixed audience room on Saturday, where I had some of the legends that you and I respect in the room taking notes. Dodd-Frank has done more to discriminate and redline against disadvantaged minorities and females than the most ardent, misogynistic, racist segregationists could have ever done. And it's a shame, but that's what it's done.
Because of the restrictions
Because of the restrictions.
Yeah. Well, we know the government.
Now that statement may get me some hate mail, but I don't care, because I know I'm right.
No, you're right. You're right. Well, look, let's face it. The government never fixes anything. They just create bigger problems, and then they have to come in and say, "Well, we'll fix that one," and then it just it steamrolls on. So and
I'm going to talk about that for just a second, because in my current major advocacy component, okay, and I'm giving you a sneak peek on this, David. The Renters' Bill of Rights, as announced by the administration and our president, is my #1 political objective this year.
All right. Well, tell me about that. So this is federal.
This is federal. This is my home. This is my stuff. I have already been advocating heavily against anything that looks like, smells like, feels like, or glimmers like federal rent control. And I've been advocating on both sides of the party, both party lines, and been hearing it. My message is being received very well. We've got to continue to do something on that, and I'm building it out. And when I have it built and debuted, you're going to know about it.
Good.
You know, I'm building a site. It's up. It's a little wobbly still, called rentalfreedom.org. Rentalfreedom.org. We're going to make it much more robust over the next couple of weeks. But here's where we're going. And I've got calls with regulators and attorneys and compliance people next week in DC on what I'm doing with this. So, but the key is, we as entrepreneurs, we as business owners, we as real estate investors, we as landlords, for 4 or 5 decades, we have been getting carved up because we don't have a seat at the table. And going back to Build Back Better that you talked about earlier, which, 18 months ago, we went hard at. I'm going to let my internet just stabilize for a second here. Build Back Better came hard at the self-directed IRA industry. It didn't touch the areas that I'd already been lobbying and advocating on. Men like Eddie Speed and David Fenolio and Mitch Stevens and Glenn Lee and Paulo Dwyer and you and Troy Fullwood and other men that we all know, like, and respect. We've been working on seller financing for years in DC, and Build Back Better didn't have anything coming at it because they already knew we had a seat at the table on that. Okay. But they were coming at something that we didn't have a seat at the table. So we clawed our way to get a little seat there. And it's a matter now of landlords have got to get their seat at the table, because they are owed a big seat. Because if you think about it, the average small time mom and pop landlord, 1 to 20 doors, supplies a vast amount of housing in this country. And we are in the bullseye of the socialist, progressive fascists that say, yes, you can own it, but we're going to tell you how to manage it. We're going to tell you what you can do with it. And that is fascism to the core.
Which the idea is to create so much regulation and compliance that the small mom and pop can't do it. The cost is too high.
And so what happens? They sell, and those assets end up in a hedge fund. Yep. The same hedge funds that make nice, big, generous donations to the progressive candidates, yep, to the liberal socialist candidates. You think that's accidental? It's not.
No, not at all. Well, so very important point, because every other major constituency in the U.S. has lobbyists. Big money, and money's what buys you favor, right? And so what you're saying is the problem with grassroots, very, very divided around the country. You've been working really hard to build this coalition. I mean, you have built a coalition, not working for it, yeah, but the strength has got to be there, because you're right. People are naive and complacent about what's happening, and if they don't understand what's happening, then the tsunami comes and they look up and wonder what the heck happened. Where did that come from? Where was the warning signs? Well, you're trying to turn those warning signs all the time. Wake up, yep, wake up. We got to get together, and it takes a force, because that's the only thing that legislators will listen to. If no one's squawking, it's like, well, they're not going to waste their time, because go ahead.
I'm going to take you back to October of 21. I was in Washington, D.C. for a day specifically to target 2 nasty provisions in Build Back Better that were still pending in the House, because it hadn't passed the House yet. It was in trouble in the Senate, and I won't get into why it was in trouble in the Senate, but it was in trouble in the Senate because of what we're doing in the House. Our good friend John Hyatt built this amazing website, handsoffmyira.com, and people all over America were taking action. And one member of Congress looked at me and said to me, and I quote, "You mean if I agree to take these provisions out of this bill," referring to the 2 provisions we were targeting, "then all these phone calls and emails will stop?"
There you go.
I said, yes. And he said, "Then it's out."
Nice.
And the next morning, the draft of the bill had it gone. Because that's what it takes, David.
That's what it takes. Yep.
It wasn't just Jeff Watson. It wasn't just John Hyatt and Jeff Watson. It was thousands of people who, from their own home, without having to leave their house, we're able to send emails, make phone calls, and you lay it out for them. And so you give them a script, they can copy, paste, personalize, bang, it goes. That's the advocacy that we've not been doing that we need to do, and I'm going to make it available.
All right. Well, here's my promise to you, because I know how hard you work on this. As this moves forward, you keep in contact with me. Not only will I put out the information, obviously, to the website and some blurbs about what you're doing, why it's so important. I mean, we can always refer back to this podcast right here for people to gather. But I've got entree into other forums, as you do, and that's what we need. We need that full blast effect, so people out there that particularly care about this will do something. Either hit the emails, do the phone calls. Takes money to do this too, by the way, folks, and that's another aspect.
But we found a way to keep it pretty cost effective. Okay, we found a way to keep it pretty cost effective. And you know what, David? I can't sleep at night if I know that I haven't put my best effort into it. And so I'm digging into my own pocket to get this thing running. I'm not looking to get paid back on it. I'm just going to get this thing running. We're going to make it happen. But here's the part I want everybody to understand. The government is supposed to work for us. But if we're silent, they don't know what we want. And if they don't know what they want, they're going to listen to who isn't silent. And right now, there's a lot of people who are whining and moaning and saying, gimme, 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 gimme. And, or housing is a fundamental human right.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we had our president come out and say something like that, and it's been obscured by China balloon syndrome, train wreck season, bank collapse season, inflation. But I'm like, all that stuff's just trying to deflect my eye off the ball, because I'm coming back to what is the backbone of America? The backbone of America is to be able to own real estate and do what you want to with it.
That's right. Well, we know that, we appreciate that, but the government, as you said, the socialist progressives that want the counter, and they're really good at coming up with media spin names. The Inflation Reduction Act, fat chance, right? Build Back Better. I mean, it sounds great on the surface. So the media spin out there in the media world is that this is great because they're doing things for the country, but no one dives in except people like you. It's like, well, what's in this, right? Few people do that. The Renters' Bill of Rights. Well, gosh, that sounds like that should be a given, right? And but read what they're doing, right? Read what that means to commerce, to free enterprise in this country. It just strips it away and
takes it all away. And the fundamental concept that really got me, and this goes back to what you had said in the introduction, when I remember the day I was at CFPB talking about land installment contracts. They had forgotten about this thing called the United States Constitution, and particularly the 10th Amendment. And I had to explain to them, I said, land installment contracts, contracts for deeds, whatever you want to call them, they're regulated by every state. Yes. Every state has their own laws on the books regarding the real estate within the boundaries of that state. And they finally looked at me and they go, you're right. And the same thing applies with this Renters' Bill of Rights. We have laws in every state. And then we have some progressive communities. We have some big communities. We've got laws on top of the state laws in cities like New York or Cleveland or Philadelphia or Chicago or wherever else. And hey, that's the power of local government.
That's exactly right.
Federal can stay away.
That's right. Yeah, let each jurisdiction decide, the people there decide what they want. And that's why we have 50 states,
But that's also now why we've had decisions made in states like Washington and Oregon, and we see people leaving in droves. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. You've got the right to vote with your voice and your feet and your wallet, so we'll go from there. Anyhow.
Absolutely. All right.
I can get wound up on this stuff, David. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad we got this out, because I'm happy to pivot with you anywhere on these, and I'll bring you back on a regular basis, because we'll need updates on this. So we'll just make this an ongoing thread, every couple of months or whatever the pulse looks like, we'll come back and talk about whatever is topical. Let's spend a few minutes on loan covenants, because we kind of seeded that early, and that comes up with what's going on with banking, but not just banking, with the overall market shift, the higher cost of capital, creating headwinds now for A lot of the syndicators that were used to the low capital rates, now they're dealing with bridge loans. They're going to reset. And so talk about that environment. Loan covenant. What are loan covenants? Number one.
Okay, fantastic. And I was telling people for 2 or 3 years now that that these low interest rates are teasers to tantalize you and lure you between the contractual sheets where you may get screwed and walk away with a permanent disease. Okay. And people wouldn't listen to me, but Jeff, the rates are so low. And I go, yeah, but have you read the rest of the loan docs? And I get this glazed over look like, what do you mean? I just got to make my payments. No. If you have a commercial loan, those loan covenants give them the right to know everything going on in your business and in all of your business. They get to be in your business. They can look at your 941 payroll taxes. They can look at your financial statements. They can look at your income tax returns. They can look at your rent rolls, not just on the property they've got a loan on, but everything else you've got. And I'm like, people, do you really understand that? And a very smart litigation attorney one time said to me how he felt about banks. And I really respected this dude. He and I were working together on a case that was really, really an interesting case. He said, banks set the paperwork up so that the moment you lift your pen off the paper from signing it, you're borderline in default.
Right.
They not only have you, but you're borderline in default.
Well, they want all the control. They want all the control, right? And as long as things are good overall, then they let things run. We think as borrowers, well, as long as I make my payments on time, right, and maintain the basic essence of the property and insure it and pay the taxes, what could go wrong? But that's
a lot can go wrong. A lot can go wrong. What if they disagree with how you have reserves? What if they think you don't have enough in reserves? What if they don't think that you are managing it correctly? What if they don't like your vacancy rate? What if they think that you've got another deal that has nothing to do with them, but could adversely affect your financial position, putting you at risk making payments to them? They can say, whoa, they don't like it, and it gives them that right, and oh, by the way, the typical commercial note and mortgage or note and deed of trust has a call provision in it that lets the bank in its discretion determine if they're going to call that note or not.
So so let's be clear about that. And this is something that I've told to my colleagues with their dental commercial loans. I said, have you ever really read those? Because I know cases back in 2008, many cases, I just hear them through the grapevine here and there, where again, somebody who had a commercial practice building commercial note was paying it fine. This is back 2008, right? And the bank called the note. Well, it was a note it was a 25-year note. Well, what do you mean call the note? There's no provision. Yes, there is. The provision was, I don't know which covenant they took him on, but the fact is, Jeff, is the banks will go after their best borrowers when they need to build back up their capital base, right? Why? Because they know you as the best borrower are the one who will find the money somewhere to get the loan paid back when they call it, right? So we think we're all good because we're like, I'm a A1 customer. I've got a 800 credit score. That they're not going to go after me. Oh, yes, they will.
Oh, you're their first choice.
Yes.
Because you're the easiest money to shake out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because guess what? Not only do they think they got the best chance of you getting liquid, but they also think that if you can't get liquid, then that's an asset that they want to take and get to harvest the equity out of it. That was on your balance sheet is now over on the bank's balance sheet, and you're no longer the owner, and you got a ding on your credit report.
That's right. That's right.
You're going to fire sell the property to pay them off, or they're going to foreclose on you.
And so we don't hear about this kind of thing when the markets overall are doing well, right? I mean, everything's good. Everybody's happy. Everybody, people, all the sins of their lack of operational skills with their properties are taken away because they can flip them off to some other greater fool because it's been easy. But now that these headwinds are here, do you believe, based on what we've seen so far in the last couple of weeks with SVB and Signature Bank, and what was the one before that? Can't think of the name, but anyway,
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so we've got banks under scrutiny. We've got First Republic. I mean, I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be more of this. So that being the case, every bank, even the ones who are maybe in okay shape, they're going to be scrutinizing all their loan documents and borrowers. Are they not? Are they not?
Yes. Yes, they are. And I'm going to give you an inverse of this, okay? Because while we've been talking, I got a text message from a real estate syndicator that I'm looking to start doing work with. This brilliant lady has sat on the sidelines the last 2 to 3 years because she saw what you and I saw. She saw what we talked about earlier, what Eddie saw, what others people saw back in 2019. She's like, I'm paring down my operations. I'm waiting. There's going to be a buying opportunity. And guess what? She's cranking stuff up now because she's like, I know what to do in these situations. I wasn't buying when it was a frenzy. I'm going to buy when everybody's running out the exits. I'm going in.
Yes.
And that's a mindset that so few people lack. And David, this is the skill that people that are experienced, like you, like myself, like Quincy Long that runs Quest Trust Company, like Eddie Speed, guys, you're going to hear the same names over and over and over because guess what? We've survived. Some of my clients in their best deals, we bought them at the back end of the 8 to 12 crunch.
Yeah. And
we've seen tremendous growth because we knew how to operate them.
Exactly.
And when everybody's running out the exits, we're going in. We're like, cops at a shooting scene. We're running in while everybody's running away because we know what we're doing. We've been waiting for these moments. We've trained, we've practiced. We've got some dry powder. We've got some education. We've got a network.
That's the key.
Of relationships.
That's the key.
Of trusted, wise people.
Yeah. That's what makes the world go around. And yeah, a lot of people, it's difficult to go against the groupthink, the herd mentality. It's hard to do that. And that's why I think the discipline of knowing people that have that wisdom, have that scar tissue, that we carry. You've got to know those people because when you're tempted to go with the herd and keep buying and take the very low rates, teaser rates, just because, you should, because everything goes up forever. It never comes down. You need that wisdom around you. We all do. We're all tempted to try to take a shortcut to something.
Yep.
Or do something we know probably shouldn't do it, but gosh, everybody else is doing it. Get on the bandwagon. Come on. It's like, you got to be around people that have been down that path before and say, not so fast, Sonny, not so fast.
Yep. So I'm gonna back up. So 2019, Dallas, Texas. I think you were there. Eddie and I and you and some others were trying to get this into the mindset of a lot of people that sit in these big groups. You know who the groups are. You probably been in parts of them at times. And a few of them, less than 10%, caught it.
Yeah.
And they have come back to me in the last 3-4 years and they go, man, I remember what you told me back then. And if I hadn't have been doing what you said, I wouldn't be in business anymore.
So true. So true.
And one guy looked up to me and he says, all the deals I do now are because of what I learned back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the market has shifted in his area faster than most anywhere else. And he's like, if I don't know how to buy creatively, if I don't know how to buy and leave the existing debt in place and structure it and have the conversations and create the documents, I couldn't do a thing.
Right. That's right. Well, that's a whole discussion that we're going to do probably. I say probably next time, unless something supersedes what we're going to talk about. But I think that's the element. So I think we've laid out the context for where we are in the marketplace, that you need to be doing things differently. You've got to be careful about signing your note, your commercial note with recourse. You've got to understand who you're doing business with. If you're not signing the note, who are you investing with? What do you know about their operational abilities? I think that then we'll look at what these opportunities are, because as you said, when no one else can do transactions because the retail marketplace is no longer transacting, the credit market liquidity tightens up, banks won't lend. There's opportunities to take. If you don't know how to navigate those waters with the creativity that we had to learn over the market cycles, you're out. But that's where the huge opportunity comes in, because so few know how to do that. So we'll jump into that on our next call that we do, next interview we do. But I think this was a great setup for that, Jeff. And I want to thank you for your time today. We'll come back and do it again. And as I said, I'm happy to continue to proliferate the work that you're doing, because the
Thank
advocacy that you do requires a mass of people behind you to say, yeah, this is what we want. It's not just one person. It's, yeah, you represent a lot of people, and you do it well. That's the other thing is you. It takes an art form to navigate what you do in Washington. I don't think I'd have the patience, and you have to be a diplomat at the same time, and be as ardent as you are about what you're convicted to take on.
Do we have time for me to tell a real quick story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Last time I was in DC last month, we targeted a bunch of meetings with members of Congress from New York that served on the financial services committees. So they're obviously Democrats. And we met with one of the senior staffers for one of the most influential members. And we're talking about lifting a restriction on what people can do with their own capital. And we're talking about taking this Dodd-Frank limitation of 3 seller finance deals in a 12-month period of time and moving it to 24. And he looked at me and goes, "That's a huge ask. Why do you think you deserve that?" And I looked at him and I didn't say what was in my mind. I said,
Oh gosh,
because we want to do with our own property because it's our own property.
That's right. That's right. It's our stuff.
And he didn't have an answer.
The
because
mindset
he never thought of it from that perspective, that it's really their property.
They don't. The government thinks that they need to rule over everything. That's and we don't own any. Well, I don't want to go there, but you know, it's like you own nothing, you're happy. You know, I mean, we go off the deep end with that. But that, I think that is the mindset of the bubble. They get so in their bubble and they hear so much of this that they just start taking, even the ones that were maybe middle of the ground, just start getting sucked over to the side, and that's why it requires an ardent pushback all the time.
But I'm gonna leave on it. I want to end this on a very positive note. I want to tell you that as of last week, I had bipartisan support from influential members on the appropriate committee in Congress. I'm not going to say what committee, but the appropriate committee in Congress, to make sure that there was no progress being made on anything that looks like national or federal rent control. Members of both sides that have influence and control about what happens there have agreed with me. We're not interested in that. We oppose it. It's not happening. Now that's great for now. Yeah. But that's now. I worry about next month and next year and the year after, because this is a 6 to 10 year game. We've got to beat this stuff for the next 6 to 10 years to make it go away and not come back.
Exactly. Well,
because the opposition has been building this story since 2018, 2019, and we got to catch up and win it.
They're really good about using any quote crisis to their advantage. And they bring that up and bring up their case stories about so and so and say, this is why we need this, you know, and it's again.
Yeah, and so I've got a plan to how to counter that, because pictures are worth thousands of words. So I'm already having landlords send to me pictures of their rental properties once they get them back from tenants. And you see the absolute disgusting condition in which people were living. And I'm like, these are the people you're trying to protect.
Yeah.
You know, and they're either malicious, vicious, mentally ill, or something, you know. But the poor landlord is the guy bearing he or she's bearing the cost of coming in and fixing tens of thousands of dollars of damage caused by somebody who wasn't paying and thought it was their right to do so. Yeah. All right.
Good work, Jeff. All right. Well, appreciate you being here. Thanks. We'll have you back again relatively soon and keep the conversation going.
Looking forward to it, David. Looking forward to it. See you soon, man. Peace.
Thanks, Jeff. All right.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.